Hotep Scholars. Once again, I'm Professor Horton, and this is STEM for second grade. We've been talking all about matter. We started off talking about two properties used to describe matter, both color and texture. Then we learned the three states of matter: solid, liquid, and gas. Last week, we did an amazing experiment that took our matter from a solid state to a gas state by mixing the liquid and the solid. This week, we'll focus on identifying the differences between a reversible change in matter and an irreversible change in matter. We started out looking at an example of a reversible change in matter when we filled our Ziploc bag with water, placed it in the freezer, and we noticed that it changed from a liquid to a solid. This change in matter was then reversed by allowing the ice to melt. At that point, our matter went from a solid back into a liquid. Then, last week, we looked at changing matter from a liquid to a gas by mixing both baking soda and lemon juice in a bottle with a balloon on the top. When we shook it, we noticed that it changed in gas. It transformed into gas because the balloon had risen. This week, we will take another look at an irreversible change in matter when we mix both a liquid and a solid to create slime. So let's head over to the lab and take a look at this week's experiment. All right, we're back in the lab and we're ready to create our slime. So here's what it's going to look like when we get finished. And I've already recorded this, so I'm just going to talk you through the process. And before we get started, make sure that you get your parents' permission. This is not something that you can do alone. You do need your parents' permission, and you will need their assistance. So for today's experiment, we will need the 2 warm cups of water, a measuring cup, Elmer's glue, and borax. We will need a mixing spoon, something to mix this up with, and a teaspoon. So we'll need a measuring spoon, and make sure that it is the teaspoon. All right, so to start with, the first thing that we're going to do is use our measuring cup to measure out our Elmer's glue. So I used 1 cup of Elmer's glue. If you cannot use 1 cup, then go ahead and use the 4 ounces, which would be the smaller glue bottle that you would get from the store. However much glue that you use, that is how much water you will use. So in my case, I went ahead and filled it up to 1 cup. Then we're going to pour the glue into our mixing bowl. And you're going to try to get as much of the glue out as possible. That's actually looking pretty good. So this next step is to mix in the borax. And we're actually going to use 1 teaspoon of the borax, and we're going to mix it into our 2nd glass or cup of warm water. It doesn't need to be heaping over. And borax is a detergent booster. And with that being said, you want to make sure that you don't get this in your eyes, that you don't get this in your mouth. You also may even consider using gloves. It's not a chemical that will harm you unless you ingest it. So once again, make sure that you get your parents' permission and that they help you with this, just so that we can make sure that you stay safe. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to mix in our borax, and we're going to use a tablespoon to mix the borax in. So let me go ahead, and the most important thing about using the tablespoon to mix in the borax is that you make sure that you are pouring it in as slowly as possible. So you're gonna slowly mix in the borax, and you'll understand why a little bit more while you're doing this, because as you're mixing it in, as you can see, it is changing from a liquid into a solid. So once again, this is a chemical reaction that will change the matter from a liquid to a solid. And because it happens so quickly, you want to make sure that you pour it in slowly. Once again, you will need your parents' help, because even as an adult, to pour it in slowly with one hand and mix it with the other hand, it was a little challenging. So get your parents' permission and make sure that they help you with it. And you're going to continue to pour in our borax mixture until you notice that your glue is no longer a liquid. Notice that I am still mixing this in. There we go. And you can really see that it's starting to turn into a solid at this point. It's still pretty liquidy, so I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna mix it in and mix it up as much as possible, and then I'm gonna go ahead and add a little bit more of the borax mixture. There we go. And now this is about the consistency that I was looking for. You can tell that when I lift my spoon up, everything comes with it. And so actually, this is now slime. So we're good with the slime. But the next thing that I want to do is to add in some color. So if you would like to have slime that is not just white, it's a good idea to get some food coloring. In my case, I'm using blue, and we're just going to add it in right at this moment. So once it's a solid, once it's gone from the liquid state into the solid state, then we're going to add in a couple of drops of food coloring. So once again, you do want to get your parents' help so that they can make sure that you don't put in too much of the food coloring. And because food coloring can stain things, you want to make sure that you either use gloves or that you are that you are not getting it on your clothes, just to keep everything as clean as possible. So once you get the food coloring in, you're just going to continue to mix it up a little bit. I was okay with getting the food coloring on my hands, so I'm gonna go ahead and pick it up and then knead it in the rest of the way. You can, however, continue to mix it with the spoon if you would like. All right, and at this point we have created our slime. There we go. And the more that you knead it in, the more that it gets mixed in, and eventually it'll stop looking like the marble, like a marble, marble slime, and it'll start to be solid blue. You'll want to make sure that you keep this in a container that has a lid on it to keep it from drying out. But go ahead and try this experiment at home. Make sure you get your parents' permission and their assistance. And I hope that you have as much fun with it as I did. All right, scholars, that's all that I have for you today. Have a good day. Enjoy your experiment, and I will see you next time.